When I was getting ready to go see this movie, I was looking through some of my old comic books and I came across this. It is an issue of Marvel Premiere with Ant-Man, and that is the very first appearance of Ant-Man, Scott Lang as Ant-Man in Marvel Comics, so that's pretty cool.
Garbage Day! Huh? No!
Hey everybody, welcome back to reviews for the channel. I'm sorry it's been a little while. I think Knock at the Cabin was the last one that I did. There's been so much going on lately. But I'm back to review Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Yeah, this one I'm going to do unscripted actually because I have a lot to say about this one. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is once again directed by Peyton Reed and stars Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly, among many others. Of course, Jonathan Majors as Kang. So this movie picks up shortly after Endgame, I believe, like maybe a year after, and it involves the crew going into the quantum realm and encountering Kang the Conqueror, who's going to be the big villain for the next couple phases of the MCU. And I don't want to get into too many spoilers, so I'll just leave it there. So what I'm going to do with this review is I'm actually going to have a first section just kind of giving general thoughts and just reviewing the movie overall. And then I am going to have a section near the end with spoilers, so I will give a spoiler warning because I kind of can't talk about this one without getting into spoilers. There's just there's too much to kind of get into here. So I'm not one of those people who actually thinks the MCU is like garbage. Since Endgame, there's a lot of hyperbolic opinions about these movies going down in quality, especially with Phase 4. I liked a lot of the last Phases stuff. I thought Wakanda Forever was great. I thought No Way Home was amazing. I really enjoyed Multiverse of Madness and Shang-Chi. Kind of the rest of the films were kind of okay to, yeah, not very good. And then the Disney Plus shows kind of fluctuated in quality, probably my favorite one being either Falcon and Winter Soldier or Loki. Now, what do I think of the movie overall? Well, it's a mixed bag. I'm sorry to say that, some of the buzz this movie's been getting is accurate. Not to the degree I think that Rotten Tomatoes has it at. I don't think it deserves a rotten rating. I do think it's an okay film. It has its really great moments and it has some really bad moments. But it's definitely not a piece of crap. It's watchable, and I do think it is worth seeing. My biggest complaint with the movie is that it's just tonally inconsistent. And what I mean by that is there are moments in this film that I thought were fantastic. It actually takes the Ant-Man series into a much darker, more high stakes scenario with some of the interactions with Kang and especially with Janet Van Dyne and even with Scott Lang and Evangeline Lilly's character, Hope Van Dyne. I thought that some of the pathos with these characters was really genuinely well done this time, better than it's ever been in the series. But then you'll go from scenes like that to, without spoiling anything yet, like MODOK. Oh boy, that was poorly done in my opinion. I think there's some things, I hate to say, that are from the comic books that you should not adapt in live action, and MODOK is one of them. Not to mention, they make some very big changes to MODOK that were really unnecessary, and really, I don't know if he needed to be in this movie, quite frankly. Another thing that didn't need to be in this movie was this subplot involving a resistance down in the quantum realm, involving a bunch of characters that were oppressed by Kang the Conqueror. And that's kind of interesting in theory, but really it comes off as a bit of a Star Wars ripoff, and it also just, it doesn't add anything to the goal of what this movie is trying to do, and that's set up Kang the Conqueror and to have Scott Lang face against him. So I really thought that was completely unnecessary. And then just most of the humor is just not working in this one. There's some really funny parts. There's a couple jokes that I did laugh at, but for the most part, I feel like this movie had less humor than the other two, which I did appreciate, but the humor that was there just wasn't working, and it was way too silly. And again, it contrasted with a lot of the more serious moments of this film. There's cameo appearances with this isn't a spoiler, it was in the trailer, but like Bill Murray shows up as a character in the film. He's literally only there to be a plot device to move the plot along. He has one scene and he kind of phones it in. And yeah, there's not a ton else to go into as far as like the overall film without spoiling it, so I'm just gonna give a final rating before I get into the spoiler territory. I'm gonna give this movie a 6 out of 10. I think it's okay. I think it is worth seeing for the grand overall story of the MCU. There's two really cool end credit scenes, which I'll mention in the spoiler section. Those are possibly the best parts of the movie, which is another problem with the MCU lately, is that, you know, the end credit scenes kind of overshadow the movie sometimes, which they should just be the icing on the cake to kind of leave you excited leaving the theater, as opposed to like supplementing what the movie should have been. So with all that being said, let's get into spoilers. So spoiler warning, if you haven't seen the movie, turn the video off. So this movie utilized Kang very well. I feel like he wasn't in it as much as I would have liked, but when he was there, he was menacing. There's a scene where he just like murders a bunch of people, and it's so well done. Jonathan Majors does a great job. I didn't really want to mention his performance till we got to this spoiler section, just because I feel like you need that context to kind of get where I'm coming from. But he was such a menacing villain, and he totally contrasted with MODOK, which I'll get into in a second here. I thought Jonathan Majors did a great job, and all his scenes with Michelle Pfeiffer were really good. Their history that they have within the quantum realm and the reason that she was stuck down there for so long is really interesting. That was the most interesting part of the movie to me. And I think Paul Rudd is always great in this role. I think he got a lot more good, like, dramatic moments to work with in this movie. And I think he's a great Ant-Man. Evangeline Lilly was also very good in this movie. She I don't think she's any better or not as good as the last two. You know, she still did a great job. Everybody else, Michael Douglas is always great. I thought that Catherine Newton, who plays Cassie Lang in this movie, she did a fine job, but I felt some of her acting was a little too on the nose in certain parts, and like specifically the moment where she has to kind of get the rebellion to kind of fight back against Kang, which that could also be attributed to that moment just being not necessary to the overall plot, so maybe that's not her fault. Clearly the reason that she was included even in this film as far as the main narrative goes is to set up her role in Young Avengers, which one of the things this movie is doing is it's got a bit of the Iron Man 2 syndrome, which I love Iron Man 2. I actually think it's super underrated, but that movie's main purpose is just to set up the Avengers, and I feel like this movie's main purpose is just to set up, the Kang Dynasty and what happens with that, the whole Phase 5 and 6 storyline. All right, let's now get into MODOK. I thought, first of all, having it be Corey Stoll, who played Darren Cross in Yellow Jacket in the first film, kind of an interesting idea, and it kind of played out the way I thought it would with him, where he's like, when he got shrunk down into the quantum realm, his body was all distorted, and that's why he has the big head. But the visual effects to bring that big face to life was really bad. It did not look convincing at all. And this is no shade on Marvel's visual effects people. I know they're probably on crunch like every single day, and they just have way too much to work with. But if this is the result, then they should just be delaying these movies till they get it right. But also, I just feel like MODOK's inclusion in this movie was pointless. You know, he didn't really do anything of note and add or move the story along until he had to fight back against Kang and he took down his shield so the ants could get him. But like, and then his death scene was just a joke. He's just treated as a joke the whole time. Like, and I get it because he's a silly character, but I feel like they could have redeemed MODOK in a big way if they gave him like an actual death scene. But you know, they just made it silly and had him be an idiot the whole time. So MODOK, I know there's probably big fans of MODOK out there, but leave those kind of characters out, in my opinion. All right, now on to the end of the movie. I feel like the final confrontation with Kang and Scott was really well done. It was really brutal, hand-to-hand fighting, and you know, Kang's just like wailing on him. He breaks his helmet. It's really good stuff. But then, I didn't like that. What I thought was going to happen was that I thought that both Scott and Hope were going to be stuck in the quantum realm because she has to go back and save him, and the portal was closing. I thought that they were going to get stuck there, and that was going to be like kind of, you know, the hook for the next movie, and like I thought that would be kind of interesting that they're trapped there. But no, they give us the kind of happy ending where they end up back where they were at the beginning, back home. And they do have the little moment of Scott kind of questioning whether Kang's really gone, but they kind of play it for laughs, so it's like you can't really take it too seriously. And then secondly, it's not clear in the movie. I don't know if Kang is, like, this Kang that we see, the Conqueror, is he actually dead? If he is, that's really disappointing to me, because I know that there's Kang variants and like they show this at the end of the movie, but to me this was probably, you know, this is Prime Kang. This is the Conqueror, the one that is like the threat to every other Kang. And I feel like they could have, so if he is dead, I feel like that's really lame. I don't like that at all. But you don't see a body and you don't get confirmation on him being dead, even though they think he's dead at the end, the Council of Kangs. You don't see a body. So there's a big possibility that Kang is not dead, because I was under the assumption that was Prime Kang. So we'll have to wait and see for a future movie if this is actually the case. Okay, to end it off, let's get into the end credit scenes. The first end credit scene shows the Council of Kangs, and they all believe the Conqueror to be dead. Again, we'll see if he actually is. And we see Immortus, who is the kind of the head of the council, the good Kang, the most good that he is, honestly. And he has the cool like hat, like he looked really comics accurate. And then we see the Scarlet Centurion, who's like kind of I believe he's like kind of a warrior Kang, who's like, he's not like good or evil, he's just kind of, he's a wild card, honestly. And then we also see Rama Tut, that was the coolest part for me, because he was one of the first villains that the Fantastic Four ever fought. And he was Kang who lived in ancient Egypt and ruled as a pharaoh. And he's a villain, but he's not quite as evil as like Prime Kang. So we see those three, and then they're kind of calling all of the other Kangs to the council to like meet about what their next plans are going to be. And there's like millions of them. It was a cool scene. I liked that a lot. And then we move into the second post-credit scene, which was the coolest part for me. It was actually a scene from the second season of Loki, which is coming out later this year. That was really, really cool to see. And it involves Loki and Mobius tracking down Victor Timely, who is the variant of Kang who like lives in the 17th century, and he kind of has like a magic show or something. I don't know what kind of changes they're making to him here, but they're tracking down that variant of Kang there, so that'll be really cool to see play out in the Loki series. Okay, so that's the spoilers section. Yeah, overall the movie was fine. I think it is worth seeing, but there's major problems. I think the MCU really needs to they need to balance the silliness and kind of tone it down a bit, I think, because like I'm not opposed to goofiness in superhero movies, like if it's appropriate. I do generally prefer darker, more serious tones in my comic book stuff, just because it feels like I can take it more seriously in that way. But you know, the MCU did a pretty decent job of balancing that in the first three phases, I feel. I think if they can get some of that fixed and then kind of make the scripts not quite as much of a mess, like try to have less going on, less characters that they have to juggle, I feel like that would help a lot. So again, I give it a 6 out of 10. And yeah, that's the review for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I will see you guys again very soon.